Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about SharePoint site ownership. If you've been given ownership of an existing site today that you're unfamiliar with, or you have to create one from scratch, you may be thinking, what am I getting myself into? I want to talk about what site ownership really means and some of the principles that will guide you along to becoming the best SharePoint Power owner and give you full control of managing your sites, your users, and your content. So let's dive into it. Today I'm getting pretty specific with SharePoint topics, but I want to say that the guiding principles that we cover in this video come from our internal communications guidebook, and you can check that guidebook out in the link in the description below. Let's start with one of the most important parts about being a power owner in SharePoint, which is understanding what type of site you're on. If you didn't know, there's actually 2 different sites in SharePoint, and they're designed to be used differently. So it's really important as an owner, you're using the right site for the right purpose. So because these sites work in different ways, working against their design is going to cause a lot of problems for you in managing the site and confuse users who are actually using them. The first one is a communication site. This is when you have a limited number of content creators that are publishing news or events out to a wide audience, like an organization. You see this commonly in employee intranets or employee portals. So there's only one way of communication. Content gets published out to people who only have access to read and consume the content, and owners like yourself are creating that content. The second type of site is a team site, which we use for collaboration. Collaboration is when you're working back and forth on documents, and the team members in that site all have the same access because they just need a shared space to work on documents and files for something like a project. So now at this point, you may be asking yourself, Matt, I have a site that I'm using the wrong way, or I have a site that I'm using for both of these reasons. That's okay right now, but you might want to think about breaking out that site into 2 different sites. Maybe you have a team site that needs to be a communication site and a team site, because the reality is it's much easier to manage 2 sites the way they're supposed to be than to manage one nightmare site that's broken and not working for both cases. One more thing I want to add here is that if you are creating sites around this time and you're going to create a team site, you might want to think about creating a Microsoft team. Microsoft Team comes with the chat and calling users and creating meetings, but if you didn't know, creating a Microsoft Team actually creates a team site on the SharePoint end. So when you're plugging in files in chat or uploading documents, it's actually going into a document library in that team site. So you're actually using SharePoint in a team site collaborative way, but you get all the benefits of using Microsoft Teams. In this video, we're covering a lot of topics, and we actually link off to some other videos we've created that take a deeper dive into SharePoint. So if this helps you in your workplace or you want to find more content about this topic that we're covering, you can like this video and subscribe to our channel below. So the next big principle you should follow as it pertains to becoming a SharePoint Power owner is understanding how permissions work in each of these sites. Permissions cascade through a site, and they're designed to do that. So working against this principle is going to cause you a bunch of problems managing both users and your site content down the road. We recommend that you stick with these default SharePoint groups that already come with your site when you create it. We have site visitors that can read content, site members that can add and edit content, and site owners who can pretty much do everything else in the site. When you add these users to these default groups, you give them access to the entire site in their permission group level. So a site visitor should get access to the entire site just to read the content. A site owner should be able to manage the entire site. Their hierarchy to these site permissions matter, and the fact that you can give access to an entire site to someone means you don't have to manage their permissions elsewhere in the site. It's just that one level. In cases where you need to manage different permissions at different levels, we really recommend creating another site because modern sites are so easy to create. And again, it's easier to manage different sites for unique purposes than to try and manage permissions levels within one site. So clearly there may be some use cases where you want to break or bend some of these rules. Maybe you have an external user that needs access internally to your organization's site, or you have a permission group that you kind of want to change and alter the permission level of. As a site owner, it's kind of on you to determine if this is a one-time case where you're going to remember where these permissions are broken or changed, or if you are going to be doing this a lot and maybe you want to think about creating other sites instead of breaking these permissions. If you think one of these situations apply to you and you may have a good use case for one of these things that we've talked about, I invite you to comment down below so we can get a conversation started about it. In my experience, a lot of times when I'm working with clients that are either just getting started on their SharePoint owner journey, or they've been inheriting a new site where they need to create more content, is that they just can't get started. We want to talk about being bold and creating content and just getting content out there. SharePoint as a tool is iterative, which means you work on content, you save it, and then you publish it or push it out when it's ready. The best part about creating content in your SharePoint site is you can start getting feedback about your content, or you can reflect on your own content. If a page gets too busy, you can break it up into 2 pages by duplicating the page, but you won't know that until you actually start creating content on the page. So break that little reluctance and just get in to start creating whatever you can. It's gonna help you become better at using SharePoint, and it's gonna help have you and your team collaborate on things together. One principle we use is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If it's good enough to create in the site, it's probably good enough to publish out to your users. Or we also say things like content is king. You can't really review and get feedback about a page if there's no content on it. So get content out there and get eyes on it early. That's just another little step into building out your whole site. So one of the benefits of being a SharePoint Power owner is knowing that you can go retrieve lost stuff. Every SharePoint site has a recycle bin. When people delete stuff, it's gonna go there for 3 months. It'll actually move on to a second stage recycle bin for another 3 months. So anytime within that 6-month span, you can actually go in and see who deleted content, where they deleted it from, and when they exactly deleted it. You can restore this content for those users if they accidentally deleted it, or you can even restore different versions of that content once it's been published in a communications site. We actually call that version history. So in a communications site, when you publish drafts of pages and documents, it's storing different versions of those documents so you can track the life cycle of those pages and documents. At any point in time, owners can go in and revert or restore previous versions of that content. So sleep well knowing that you can get previous archived versions of content or go find stuff that was accidentally deleted. So as you begin to start creating content, power owners should be aware of the opportunity to customize their content further by including metadata on it. Metadata is a way to organize your content by putting data on top of the files that you have. So if you're storing files in a network drive or in your OneDrive today, they just exist as files with a title and maybe the date that you uploaded it. The title and those dates are basically metadata, and you can add more pieces of metadata when you move them into SharePoint. So think about adding a content owner to a document or a date that that document needs to be revised by. Maybe you want to tag that document with a specific topic like a department. All of these things can help you organize and filter your content in libraries and lists and help you push them out to different pages in unique ways. To get some more help about managing metadata on your content and maybe standardizing them as content types, we actually have a video in the description link below. So we've covered a lot here in this video, but hopefully this video makes you feel better because you know what type of site you're on. You know how your users engage with the site. You know that creating content is just the first big hurdle before it gets easier building out your site. You know that there's ways to retrieve content, and you know also how to customize your content further if it's needed. All of these things combined together are going to make you a great SharePoint Power user, and I wish you the best in your SharePoint journey.